Hello my dear friends, and welcome back to another Star Wars video. It is I coming at you once again, your favourite galactic hostess, Star Wars Meg. Skeleton Crew has come to an end. What an amazing show. I shared my thoughts on the finale in my full episode breakdown, but today my dear friends, we're going to be talking about a so-called canon problem that's emerged in light of the way the episode portrayed the New Republic. Some fans have pointed out there is a bit of a mismatch, an inconsistency between the way the New Republic is depicted in Ahsoka, Book of Boba Fett, The Mandalorian, versus the way we see them in Skeleton Crew. So let's talk about it. The contention is this: in The Mandalorian Season 3, why did the New Republic do nothing when Navarro was attacked by pirates? And yet in Skeleton Crew, when Atatin is attacked, a planet that to most of the galaxy is just a myth, the New Republic rushed to their aid, so fans are wondering why the discrepancy. Well, my dear Megalorians, there are two major factors we have to take into account. With the situation on Navarro, when Carson Tavor takes matters into his own hands and goes to Coruscant, we find out the reason the New Republic isn't gonna help is because Navarro is not a member world, so they don't consider it a priority, especially during a time where military funding is scarce. On the other hand, while Atatin didn't have a relationship with the New Republic, they used to be a member world of the Old Republic. And not just this. As harsh as it is to say, the rediscovery of Atatin is a financial benefit to the New Republic. They figured, if the stories are true, they can sign Atatin up as a member world of the New Republic and reap the financial benefits of the Old Republic mint. The 1,139 vaults could bring a booming profit to an already struggling government. And while the episode was amazing, this highlights a big issue with the Mandoverse. Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni and the other showrunners are racing to connect this era to the sequel trilogy much further down the line. They need to slow down a bit. Instead of rushing ahead and racing to show us how incompetent the New Republic is, first give us a few years where they were prosperous. Because we know eventually it's all gonna fall apart, and the First Order wins. Considering that's not for a hot minute, why are they in such a hurry to be like, this government is run by dummies, they can't get the simplest things right? They should have taken the expanded universe approach. Show us a few years post-Endor that is prosperous. Show us the New Republic at their best. And that's what Skeleton Crew's finale did to some extent, but generally in the wider Mandoverse, that's not really been the case. The Imperial Remnant is growing stronger. Grand Admiral Thrawn is back. There are things happening in the unknown regions, but in this time period before the next major war, there is more than enough time to show us, as Skeleton Crew just did, that the New Republic are supposed to be the heroes. But if you take a good look across the Mandoverse shows, it's very easy to see that just a few years after Episode 6, Mon Mothma's government was already in trouble. New Republic officials ignoring pleas for help, denying the upcoming threat of Grand Admiral Thrawn, and utilizing highly questionable re-education methods. In other words, my dear friends, the New Republic is showing itself to be no better than the Old Republic, and in many ways it's worse. They truly believe the death of Palpatine, and a few accords signed after the Battle of Jakku, was the end of a big threat. In fact, as we see in Ahsoka Season 1, some senators like Xiono don't even believe in the word remnant. They scoff at the mere suggestion Palpatine loyalists still exist, but they do, and they're growing in number. For a time, the New Republic was meant to represent a new hope for the galaxy, but it's declining less than a decade after its foundation. That being said, unlike the other Mandoverse shows, Skeleton Crew finally got the New Republic right, as quote, the real good guys. Rather than being bogged down by bureaucracy, the New Republic stands up for what is right, defends the innocent from the threat of pirates. They show up in the nick of time and save Atatin, instilling a sense of hope in the likes of Wim. To reconcile some of these major differences though, it should be said, the New Republic was made up of various factions, made up of individuals with their own personal politics, differing motives, and in this way, the children were lucky to have come across someone like Kim, an individual willing to do the right thing. Carson Tavor is another example of a beacon of light in the New Republic. And in this way, the final episode captured the spirit of the old Rebel Alliance, the ongoing struggle of good versus evil, but being there when people need you the most. Obviously, Skeleton Crew is aimed at a younger audience, so they were never going to really show you the deeper politics of the government, but it was so important and powerful for the children to see the New Republic as the good guys. Just like Fern said, there are pockets of good people scattered across the galaxy, those who are willing to do good and help those in need. A stark contrast to Jod's more cynical, darker, tragic outlook. But I do find it fascinating the different writers of these different Mandoverse shows want to convey different facets of the same complex government. So I have to say, going forward, not just in Ahsoka Season 2 but also the movies like The Mandalorian and Grogu, Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni really have to decide the pace at which they want to show the New Republic becoming competent. Do we get some more stories like Skeleton Crew, where they get to be the heroes of the galaxy? Or is it going to be more bureaucratic failures like in The Mandalorian and the Ahsoka show? A very interesting question. And before we move on, we have a very interesting tease for Skeleton Crew Season 2. The showrunners Jon Watts and Chris Ford answered some pressing questions. And where's the show going? I'm just going to give you the meat and potatoes, 2 enormous takeaways from this. Jod's backstory is something they say they already know, and they were debating whether to throw it in as a flashback in this episode, but they didn't. They say they wanted the show to be from the perspective of the children, and to them, a flashback to Order 66 would have meant nothing. It would have just been for the audience, just for the sake of exposition. But they do suggest that story could be picked up at a different time. The doors are wide open for it. And on the subject of a second season, they confirm they already have a story in place. Even before making the first season, they knew where this story was going and what they want to do next. But they acknowledge it's all about viewership, all about the ratings, all about if Disney and Lucasfilm are going to renew. But they know what they want to do with the Season 2, and that, my dear friends, is so darn exciting. But the Mandoverse is taking a bit of a break. 2026, we have both Ahsoka Season 2 and the Mandalorian movie. But this year, in just 3 months' time, 96 days, Andor Season 2. I'm so excited, and with Star Wars shows it's always like, what is the next thing? Once a show comes to an end, fans seem to just forget about it, and we tend to press on. But before we do that, before the marketing for the second season of the Tony Gilroy series begins, I think it's time, as I do for all of these shows, to give you my updated rankings list for all of the live-action Disney Plus Star Wars shows. I've seen fans do this across social media, and now it's my turn. At number 1, The Mandalorian Season 2. For this top spot I often alternate between Andor and Mando, depending on my mood. But The Mandalorian Season 2 is what I'm feeling today. That season, say what you will about cameos, was probably the most fun we've had as fans in many years. So number 2, Andor Season 1. No question about it. I've spoken in so much depth of what I love about this show. Andor is number 2. Then I'm going to give it to The Mandalorian Season 1, and then Skeleton Crew. Then we get into some contentious territory where fans often disagree with me. I'm going to say Ahsoka. The first 6 episodes were an absolute delight. I did enjoy 7 and 8, but as a Star Wars Rebels fan, the first 6 episodes were fantastic. Then I'm going to give it to Book of Boba Fett. This often surprises fans when I say this, but for all of its flaws, Book of Boba Fett was a lot of fun, and I'm not just talking about the Mandalorian episodes. Then afterwards, Kenobi, and finally, and I'm sorry if you like this show, The Acolyte. It just was not for me, guys. So those are my rankings, and my question for you guys, what are your rankings? What is your updated list following Skeleton Crew? Let me know down below. And if you enjoyed this video, guys, as always, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up. It really helps out. Make sure to subscribe if you're new. We're so close to 140,000 subscribers. Check me out on socials. The link to my Patreon is down below, and I'll see you in the next one. May the Force be with you, always.